Dear students, in making of sociology as a discipline, the role of early thinkers play a significant role. The approaches in the classical sociology usually were classified under three broad categories as functionalism, conflict and symbolic interactionism. Among this, functionalism was considered to be the earliest. Structural functionalism, or on many contexts simply called as functionalism, is a broad perspective in sociology and anthropology, which sets out to interpret society as a structure which interrelated by parts. The functionalist approach to the study of society maintained that society was a system of social institutions and attendant patterns of culture. Radcliffe Brown has often been associated with functionalism and is considered by some to be the founder of structural functionalism. With Malinowski, he initiated a functionalist revolution in British anthropology during the early years after the First World War, rejecting conjectural history of previous generations of evolutionist and diffusionist anthropology in favor of synchronic systemic view. But while Malinowski contributed profoundly to the methodology of anthropological fieldwork and championed a rudimentary functionalist theory that focused on individual biological needs, Radcliffe Brown, whose methodological contribution was minimal, was inspired by Durkheim to formulate a sophisticated structural functionalist theory which focused on the needs of the social whole. With this background, students, in this session we are going to see the contributions of Radcliffe Brown, and to begin with we can look into his biography. Alfred Reginald Radcliffe Brown was born on 17th January 1881 at Aston, Warwickshire, England, as second son of Alfred Brown and Hannah. He was educated at King Edward's School, Birmingham and Trinity College, Cambridge, and graduated with first class honours in the moral sciences tripos. He studied psychology under W. H. Rivers, who with A. C. Haddon led him toward social anthropology. He was elected as Anthony Wilkins Student in Ethnology in the year 1906, later in 1909, and hence he spent 2 years in field in Andaman Islands. Being a Fellow of Trinity during the period of 1908 to 1914, he lectured twice a week on ethnology at the London School of Economics and visited Paris, where he met the sociologist Emile Durkheim, whose theories coloured all his subsequent work. He married Winifred Mary Lyon when he was at Cambridge on 1910. They were divorced in the year 1938. During his tenure at Cambridge, he became aware of the works of Durkheim and Mauss. Thereafter, he started developing primary concern with the meaning and function of rites, myths and institutions. He systematized and expanded his conception of social anthropology as the comparative study of society in a brilliant series of lectures and seminars. This encouraged the application of anthropological methods to Western and Far Eastern societies. He returned to England in 1937 to take up the position of newly created chair of social anthropology at Oxford and remained as a prominent anthropologist of the early 20th century. Until his retirement in 1946, he was working in Oxford University. He died in the year 1955 in London on October 24th. Now we can see what are the prominent books written by Brown. In 1922, he wrote The Andaman Islanders. In 1931, The Social Organization of Australian Tribes. In 1952, Structure and Function in Primitive Society, and in 1958, Method in Social Anthropology. Radcliffe Brown was a British anthropologist and was considered as the founder of structural functionalism and even stated as father of modern British anthropological theory. As a theorist, Radcliffe Brown also saw the potential of bringing together Durkheimian sociology and the traditional anthropological interest in kinship. Radcliffe Brown went to Andaman Islands in 1906 and stayed over there for 2 years till 1908, where his fieldwork won him a fellowship at Trinity College, Cambridge. Initially, when Brown reported the field studies of Andaman Islanders, he formulated it ordinarily without special interest. On his exposure to Durkheim's work, he got sparking interest in the way that the social institutions act together to sustain society, much as physical organs work together to sustain a living body. Using his own modified version of Durkheim's theory, which he called as structural functionalism, he reinterpreted the entirety of his work among the Andaman Islanders, and its outcome is his study on the Andaman Islanders, which was published in the year 1922, later in the year 1964. This book contained the essential formulation of his ideas and methods, and during his field work among the Australian Aborigines, which happened in the year 1910 and to 1912, he utilized structural functionalism to analyze kinship, myth, totemism in the context of social organization. When kinship terminologies were understood, normative systems that ascribed appropriate behavior between various categories of kins, Durkheimian's concept of society as a moral collective found a seemingly ideal application. Radcliffe Brown is viewed more as a theoretician rather than a field worker. Strove to make anthropology a branch of natural sciences. Without his conscious endeavor to apply scientific methods to study of society, later achievements would have been impossible. The subject he was concerned to promote and advance was what he said theoretical or comparative sociology, and it was social anthropology. He considered it as a branch of sociology, that is, he considered social anthropology as a branch of sociology that deals with the primitive societies. Now students, we can discuss according to his conception what was the nature of this science, that is sociology. According to Radcliffe Brown, any science must have a clear and distinguishable subject matter. Any subject or a science must have a clear and distinguishable subject matter. Here, according to Brown, it is observable forms of social life. The regular forms of social life were the facts which theoretical sociology sought to understand and explain. For Radcliffe Brown, sociology was the comparative theoretical study of forms of social life, and social anthropology was that branch of it which studied such forms amongst primitive peoples. The forms of social life were not isolated or arbitrary. They were interconnected and interdependent within a system of relationship of which each of them was a part. The social system is forms of social life in interconnection and interdependence. The starting point of sociology was the recognition of the existence of total social systems, and no one part of society could be fully understood or explained excepting within this context of whole. In his own words, he argued, it gives us reason to think that we can advance our understanding of human societies if we investigate systematically the interconnections among us features of social life. Radcliffe Brown explicitly accepted Comte's distinction between statics, that is social statics, and social dynamics. In any empirical science, that is social statics, in sociology was concerned with the nature and the condition of the existence of social systems. Dynamics was concerned to the patterns of order and change in the actual societies of history. Thus, the analytical propositions of social statics guides the substantiative studies of social dynamics. Brown also accepted the evolutionary perspective in sociology. One advantage of the evolutionary perspective, he argued, was that of seeing forms as embodiments of process of adaptation to environmental conditions. According to Radcliffe Brown, there are three adaptational aspects of social system. They were the ecological adaptational aspect, that is survival by accommodation to the outer physical environment; the institutional, the internal achievement of an appropriate order of social life, that is regulating cooperation and conflict; and the third one he stated was the cultural, the socialization of the individuals, that means the imparting of those qualities of mind, character and conduct required by the social order to its individual members. For Radcliffe Brown, stability and continuity of social systems were aspects of adaptation, and it depends on the effectiveness of the adaptation. He established an analogy between social life and the organic life to explain the concept of function. Till now, we have seen the way Radcliffe Brown explains sociology as a discipline in a theoretical manner. Structural functional analysis, which was the core of his contribution to sociology. Radcliffe Brown was known for his explanation of structural functionalism. He developed a systematic framework of concepts and generalizations relating to the social structures of pre-industrial societies and their functions. His theory had its classical formulation and application in his work on the social organization of Australian tribes, which was published in the year 1931. Treating all Aboriginal Australian known at the time, the work catalogued, classified, analyzed and synthesized a vast amount of data on kinship, marriage, language, custom, occupancy and possession of land, sexual patterns and cosmology. He attempted to explain social phenomena as enduring systems of adaptation, fusion and integration of elements. He held that the social structures are arrangements of persons and that organization or the arrangements of activities. Thus, the life of a society may be viewed as the activity system of functionally consistent interdependent elements. Radcliffe Brown believed that there were three questions raised by the systems, particularly organic systems, where he tries to draw an analogy. First one is morphology, the study of structure; the second one is physiology, the study of function; and the third one is evolution, which talk about processes. The study of order and change as an adaptational process within the perspective of social evolution could only be accomplished by an analysis of elements of social structure and their functional interconnections. That is, the analysis of social system had to take the form of structural functional analysis. In social life, persons were not related arbitrarily in their actions, but their relationship followed definite regulated procedures. There existed regular forms of interrelationship, for instance, in the institutions like family, economic activity, religion, government, law, etc. These are called as social institutions. Radcliffe Brown defined institutions in terms of norms, which were the units of social analysis. He also distinguished organizations of activities from institutionalized relationships. That is, he argues that there was a difference between internal structures of roles and positions. The function of an institution was the part it played to the process of the social system as a whole. The continued existence of whole depends upon the interrelated functioning of all the parts. The continued existence of the whole depends upon the interrelated functioning of all the parts. He argued that structure, function and process are essentially related aspects of the system as a whole. Continuity and change alike can only be analyzed in terms of them, that is, in terms of structure, function and process. The continuity of the structure is maintained by the process of social life. The social life of the community is the functioning of the social structure. The function of any recurrent activity is the part it plays in social life as a whole and thereby the contribution it makes to structural continuity. Functional analysis was just the attempt to explain stability by discovering how practices fit together to sustain that stability. The function of a practice was just its role in sustaining the overall social structure, insofar as there was a stable social structure. Radcliffe Brown insisted that comparative method was crucial to sociology, particularly for the purpose of testing theories. According to him, experiment in laboratory, he wrote, is not essential. What is important is comparison of two or more instances of certain things. If there is to be natural science of human societies, its method will be the method of comparing one with another social systems of different kinds. He stated that for the advancement in the efficacy and accuracy in sociology, there was a need for the improvement and discovery of techniques and procedures by which ever more exact comparisons could be made. His emphasis on comparison was almost exactly that of Durkheim and Weber. Construction of clear types of classification and comparison of the units of society was his chief attention. An indispensable part of sociological analysis for him was an accurate taxonomy, reliable social morphology. Radcliffe Brown thought of social system as manifesting a very wide range, that is, from simplest to the most complex set of relationship within society as a whole. A social system was any ordered pattern of interaction within which people found some convergence of their interest. A society was therefore a totality of many social systems within it. The social systems can be simple or large, small or complex. Within the total institutional structure with all its functional interconnections, an analysis of all these social systems was possible. According to him, units of social structure were regulated acts resting upon values and human behavior from individual conduct to massive organization could be systematically observed, analyzed, studied in these terms. In this background, Radcliffe Brown visualized that there could be one theoretical science of society and it should be sociology. Radcliffe Brown was not interested to create a new school of functionalism and a new science of social anthropology. His concern was to support, clarify and advance theoretical comparative sociology and to see it applied effectively to study of the primitive societies in particular, that is what he called as social anthropology. He claimed that there was an independent role for social anthropology here, which is separate from psychology, though not in conflict with it. This was because psychology was to be the study of individual mental processes, while social anthropology was to study processes of interaction between people, that is something to work on social relations. Thus, he argued for a principled ontological distinction between psychology and social anthropology. It was in the same way as one might try to make a principled distinction between physics and biology. Now, we are in the last phase of the session, that is summing up. Radcliffe Brown's contribution to sociology in general and social anthropology in particular as a study of human society and culture can stand alongside those sciences of physics, chemistry or biology. He attempted to discover and formulate the universal laws that underpinned all human societies. Radcliffe Brown was much influenced by the French social theorist Émile Durkheim. Radcliffe Brown's method was to approach the study of human societies by recognizing that any persisting culture is an integrated unity or system in which each element has a definite function in relation to the whole. In other words, that whole and parts of the society are interconnected, that is what he called as functionalism. Radcliffe Brown thought that only laws of human society could be discovered by comparative study of diverse types of society. He also thought that comparative sociology, what he called as anthropology, must use the standard scientific of starting from the hypothesis and testing it in the field. Radcliffe Brown was instrumental in introducing social anthropology to American scholars. Well students, we are in the last portion of the presentation. I want to check your progress and few questions are put forward before you. Write a short note on the biography of Radcliffe Brown. Explain Brown's contribution to British anthropology. What is Brown's comparative sociology? Analyze how Brown sees theoretical sociology. Well, students, hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you. Bye-bye.